recording? Good. Got it. Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'll call this meeting to order. This is the Town of Andover Board of Finance special meeting for the budget, Wednesday, March 16th, 2022. Thank you very much for attending. We'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. The next item, number 2 on our agenda, is the public speak. This is an opportunity for the public to speak. We would like to keep the comments relevant to the budget. And I think, as everyone probably realizes, if you've read the agenda, that the main topic for tonight's meeting is a review presentation of the Andover Elementary School Board of Education fiscal year budget. As everyone knows, this is an important part of our budget through the year. So we'd like to keep our comments focused, and if we can, focus on the budget. So let's, now, Chris or Eric, if you want to go around, see if anybody has any comments.
Sure. So first up, Celeste Willard.
no comment at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Caitlin McIntosh.
No comment right now, just here to support the budget.
Okay, fair enough. And there's 2 phone numbers I don't recognize. One of them is Sherry Holmes, I presume.
Yes, I'm here. I have no comment though.
Understood. And the last
All right,
number,
thanks.
4212. I don't know who that is either.
Hi, this is Shannon Loudon. That's my
got it.
telephone number. And I'm just here to support the Board of Education's budget as was passed and proposed by the Board of Education. Thanks very much.
Okay, let me just take a quick look. I think that we have gotten everybody here, other than our 2 presenters, Jerry Creme and Valerie Bruno. So
You've got
we're good,
Steve
Mark.
Cross and Chris Bernard. I don't know if they want to make a comment during public comments also.
They're not on my screen.
I see them. Chris, do you have any comment?
Okay. Sorry.
Yep, sure. No comment other than just here to support the Board of Ed budget.
Okay, thank you. Steve?
Yep.
Okay, we're not hearing anything, but I'll assume not, but you'll have an opportunity to add comments at the end. Yeah, Eric, it could be there's a lot of participation. You might need to scroll right or left. Sometimes that confuses me, I know. So, okay, thank you, everybody. Appreciate your participation and attendance tonight in this important activity. The next agenda item is a presentation on the elementary school, Andover Elementary School budget as voted on by the Board of Education. And Valerie, you have a presentation to share?
Sure.
Okay, welcome.
Can you share your screen with me, Mark? You want me to share my screen, I mean?
Yep.
Okay.
Eric, can you give her rights to share?
You should be able to share now.
Okie doke. Can you guys see?
Yeah, it may take a minute.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hang on one second. Let me go back and see why I can't. Let me push that button again. Okay. All right. Are you
Now we're
seeing
seeing
my
your
screen?
desktop.
Yeah, I see a desktop now.
Okay, then we're in good shape. Now you can see us?
Yep.
All right, we did it. All right, let me make it so that I can see. There we go. All right, can you hear us good enough? Yes, all right, thanks, Mark. So this is the Board of Education budget that was adopted at the last Board of Ed meeting. And I will start here with the beginning for you. All right. So just a quick review of what the budget timeline was for our budget. We started in December. We did it a little bit differently this year. We had decided that kind of based on feedback, we decided this year that we would separate the budget out into different budget building workshops with a focus on different content at each of those workshops. We began in December. We had 2, December 1st and December 15th. We then moved from there and had a series of 5 with 5 different topics. Ultimately, having one open forum for people who had seen the others or watched them in the reruns, and utilized that time for feedback before the Board of Ed then took it, the feedback and the comments, and took it to heart, had a discussion, looked to see that we were where we needed to be, and had a budget then to be voted on and adopted. That's where we are today. A lot of people don't get a chance to look at our website and see our vision and our mission. So I'd like to review them so that, we have a reminder on at least a yearly basis when we're looking at planning for the future, exactly what it is we're planning for. The mission statement for AES is to provide a creative and a challenging curriculum for all of our students in a safe environment while nurturing the values of responsibility, respectfulness, and desire for learning. The vision is to create that safe educational environment that establishes a foundation for students to become creative, moral, and compassionate people. And it's very important that we also make sure that when we talk about the foundation, that we make sure that we allow our kids to be prepared for the middle and the high school level. So who we're planning for? Well, this has been exciting for us for the past almost 2 years now to take a look at the fact that even though it's slow, we don't have a decline anymore. This is something that a lot of the small towns face. I know our middle and our high school faces it as well. So we're very happy to be able to say that we don't have a declining enrollment. Last year, we started the school year out with 176 students in pre-K 6, and we ended with 183. At the start of this year, we started with 193, and this is about where we are at present day. Every month it goes down a little and up a little. People say, how do you gain enrollment during the course of the year? Because we're pre-K to 6. As soon as our little 3-year-olds turn 3 and birth to 3, then we wind up having new students during the course of the year. We love to welcome them. The fair number of our students that started in September this year, the new families that had moved in, are also younger, which is great because that also helps us to secure enrollment for the future. So we're really excited about this. Other steps forward. This past year, we did pilot new changes within our curriculum. We piloted iReady. It's about a 2-year program in terms of a total transition and switchover. We also piloted PowerSchool, which is a new student information systems, and it's working out well. PowerSchool is used in a lot of other districts, so it does have continuity for kids moving in. We pushed to focus even more on differentiation and individualization of instruction. And this is really, I think, moving forward, where we are going to be a lot better off with this focus because we can meet the needs of all of our learners, remedial, class level, as well as enrichment. So we really look at this, and we continue to be committed to incorporating learning opportunities for kids. That's really the one thing with the pandemic that we had to do is kind of think outside the box and say, we can't do things the way we normally do them. So how can we still make sure that we have learning opportunities for kids and involvement within the community when we oftentimes couldn't have people in or we couldn't leave for a field trip? So we're getting good at that. We are investing in student achievement. These are all the things we have to take into consideration year round, but especially when we plan a budget for the following year. Teaching and learning, rigorous instruction, individualized and differentiated learning opportunities, experiences for the kids over and above what's going on in the classroom, creating critical thinkers and problem solvers, successful and upstanding citizens we're investing in, and making sure that we do our part to create a foundation for college or career paths. That's not always easy in an elementary school. But the flip side is we also have to make sure that we look at safe school climate, that we look at mental health, social and emotional well-being in terms of programming and staff, a safe and secure facility, jobs with fair wages, especially when we do contract negotiations. This is large, and making sure that we have the resources available for staff, maintaining our property at a safe level, school meal programs, transportation, and technology. So over the past 6 years, every one of these items has increased in cost. And so we've really had to look at where things in the budget could be cut and which other things were out of our control in terms of an increase in cost. Here is the last number of years, the past 6 years with our approved budgets and the amount that they increased or decreased. And at this point, if you look at the past 7 years here, it significantly had gone down 418,000. So this is something that we have really grappled with. We've become very good and masterful at utilizing the resources that we have within the building. These are the grants, the annual grants, and I say annual because we do have to apply for them regularly, but these are the most reliable ones for our school district and others that we can usually guarantee that if not every year, every other year, we receive money for. So this is last year's and this year's grants. We have the title grants, 3 grants. Last year, we did miss it. We didn't get money. When I say miss it, it's based on demographics that the federal government has. It has nothing to do with us at a local level. It's the information that they are provided with. This year, we're awarded 3,941, which had been about average. Last year was the only year that we didn't get Title I. That did hurt us for extra money with the COVID relief and American Rescue. However, this year we're back and we got 3941. What do we use it for? We use it toward the remedial salaries. These are those extra staff members that assist our students. In this case, Title I money is used toward, and it's only 3,941, but we use it all toward our reading specialist. Title II went up a little bit from 26 to 3,900. And again, that went toward the remedial salary. Title IV, we had 10,000 last year and none this year because it is linked to Title I. So what happens is if you lose Title I one year, it's linked and you lose Title IV the following year. But last year we knew that and we made sure to expect that. REAP, we had 14,000 last year for REAP. That's a rural grant that's given. There's a grant that's given to either small districts or rural districts. That's what the R in front of it stands
for. The newsletter and get the latest headlines straight to your email every morning. Promotional consideration provided by. Do you have concerns about mild memory?
Thank you.
Who was that?
Not sure. The school readiness grants, there's 16 slots in a liaison that we take out of that money. If you remember last year, we have a regular liaison that assists with the school readiness grants. We had a liaison that was coming to the school regularly a couple of times a month. And last year's budget, we did reduce that liaison so that they are only there now a small percentage of the time. But then they also, the liaison assists with the writing of the grants and making sure that we're in compliance. There's a small school readiness QE grant of 3881. You'll see that's fairly regular year after year, but it's only able to be used for professional development for the preschool program. The Smart Start grant is what pays for the preschool salaries. And then 2 grants, IDEA, which is split by 611 and 619. Again, it's fairly regular, but one is pretty small. It's only 3,400 and the other one pays for para salaries. So this is really why when we say preschool, we say pays for itself between the tuition and this. These are the names of the grants that we utilize. So what's needed additionally this year? We'll jump right into it. I'm going to give you the preview here, and then we'll go through the rest of it. What did we have this year? We had contractual obligations. Last year, we talked about that being year one of the contractual obligations, and next year, obviously, we'll be going into the 22-23 school year as the second year for their contractual obligations. We did not receive what we needed. We were about $97,000 short last year for the contractual obligations, so we had to take that from other areas. This year, there really is no way around it. We have to make sure that we meet those obligations. Heating oil, so everybody knows who heats their house with heating oil is going up, the utility costs. MRF, which the town I'm sure is very aware because you have a number of employees that receive MRF, that's the municipal retirement. Our non-cert staff is under MRF, and there were increases to that. It went up to 18%. And we did have increased special education costs. So let's take a look at the specifics. So I did send to each of the members of the Board of Finance, and I know our Board of Ed has it. I did send you attachments because I knew we were doing this via Zoom. So you had 4 attachments there. One was all of the PowerPoint slides that we had from the 6 sessions, all kind of lumped into one PowerPoint to make sure that you guys had that available. I sent you then this paper, the actual budget itself by function and object. And you had one column there that was highlighted in yellow. Here there's the 4 columns highlighted, but that one has the first column. I also sent you the one with the actuals because I do know that there was a member that had asked for the actuals as well. So for right now, what I'm looking at here, what we're looking at is the superintendent's proposed budget to the Board of Ed, which is now their adopted budget for 2023. And then the current year's budget and the year before's. So that's what you're looking at here. And so I just highlighted those numbers. And as you can see, this section here is really the contractual obligations. These are salaries. And the contractual obligations were minus the anticipated retirement was $93,528. We do anticipate one retirement. And so we've already minus that from there, what the difference would be to make sure that we can plan for that accordingly. So when you look at the green there, what we're looking at for certified staff as an increase is $60,641. The instructional assistants of $43.38. And if you move down there, you'll see the total support salary increases of $62.33. So those would be the increases there in the salaries. Whoops. Let me make sure I didn't miss one, sorry. Okay. So this one, the benefits, we actually did really well this year, and I'm sure that you guys have already gone through this on the town side. The really positive thing to the consortium that we're involved in, thank goodness, is that it's been very successful. We have the insurance consortium where it's Andover, the town of, and the Board of Ed, Hebron, the town of, and the Board of Ed, Marlboro, the town of, and the Board of Ed, RAM, and then AHM services. And it's been in existence for a while. It was probably the best thing that we ever did was to join that consortium because it means we're self-insured. And because we're self-insured, yep, we take the hits when things are tough, but then we reap the benefits when things go well. And over the past few years, when there have been surpluses, they've been able to invest that and put that aside. And then when COVID hit, we didn't have as many claims put in. So this was of a benefit to us. So it's an unheard of situation for us, which is a positive thing. And that is that we're going to have a premium reduction. Which is fantastic for us because that means that we don't have to plan into the town budget, to RAM's budget, or to our budget, these significant increases in insurance that the other towns are planning for right now because the premiums are going up so much. So because of that, we had that reduction. And then it was offset. We have a new employee that's going to be on the policy this year. And then this will help us offset some of the increases to that MRF that we were talking about, that increase to the pension for the municipal pension for our non-cert members. So that was really fantastic. Otherwise, this would have been significantly higher. So this one, I knew these would be harder to see, which is why I sent them to you so you could have them on your screen. These are our other professional services, and in one of our workshops that we had, and they're all online if anyone needs them, we were able to go through and really separate. And the reason why I kept these in here was to really just show you that you're going to see a lot of zeros in that far right-hand column there. You know, we really made sure that we didn't put increases in. If we could, by doing a needs assessment, if we could kind of stay status quo. So you'll notice that through all of these, that most of these lines here, we're able to stay status quo. These are not inflationary lines, so we're just going to keep things where they are. We do try to do a lot of our staff training with existing either members of the community. For example, I know that our social worker at the start of the school year, when we do some staff training, we'll do some. I know that John's done some. I know that our tech teacher's done some. So we really do try to keep these line items to a minimum. In terms of facility maintenance, this is a tough area. This was really a conversation that we needed to have as a school first in presenting my budget to the board, and then as a board. As you know, we only have an operational budget. We do not have an operational and a capital improvement budget. And so that's tough because up to this point anyways, anything to fix the school has had to come out of an operational budget, which is not usually what a school district faces. Usually you have both an operational and a capital. But when I presented to the Board of Ed this year, it's really my thought that, and I have 0 in here, it's really my thought that the school right now is safe. And so although we still have to move forward during the course of this year with creating our capital plan, we do still have to look at some projects that are very close to the horizon for us in terms of needing to be done. We didn't put that in here because we had some of these other expenses that we really needed to put in that just were imperative. So this will be on our horizon for us to look at, but for right now, whoops. But for right now, we have no capital improvements in here. One of the biggest expenses this year is we have transportation and a third outplacement. I know that a couple of people from the public have asked before about outplacements and how they work. We are responsible for every Andover student. And so all the way through till, I mean, when they go to RAM, obviously RAM's responsible for them too, but if we have a student that attends a magnet school, we have a tuition that we have to pay. Our current magnet school tuitions are about $5,000 to $6,000. If we have a student that we just can't meet the needs of because we don't have that program that exists in our school due to our size or our resources, oftentimes it means that they have to be educated elsewhere where they do have what's required for that particular student. We do now have 3 students that currently attend other places, some a public school, some a facility that assists with other needs, that is a private facility. We are responsible for their tuition. And you know, at some point in districts, when you meet a certain threshold, there is refunds for that. We haven't met the thresholds for this refund yet. So unfortunately, that third outplacement has to entirely be in this general fund budget. And as you can see here, that adds an additional $90,000 for that third outplacement. So it's a big chunk and it's a big difficulty for our small district. In terms of building supplies, this is, you guys have it better right in front of you where it's laid out, but you can see that, and I have given kudos many times to the teachers in our building because I see it daily. I actually saw it today again. The teachers, they make sure that if there's a supply in the building, no matter whose room it's in and they need it and no one's using it, I'll see emails daily, does anyone have 3 glue sticks, 4 of this, 5 of that? They are fantastically frugal at making sure that they share resources at Andover Elementary School. I am impressed daily when I see this. So right now, I say frozen, but what I mean when I say frozen is that where we are right now is where we're going to continue to be, and hope that this next school year we can make it through doing exactly what we've been doing this year in terms of sharing supplies and making sure that we still provide a high quality education. Utilities. I purposely didn't put this one at the beginning because everybody knows this one's difficult. This is beyond our control. It's unavoidable. I know that there are some districts that have been told that they should anticipate up to a 20 or 25% increase. I know Sherry's worked the numbers, and I have 100% faith that if we plan for about a 13% difference with electricity based on what our trend is in terms of what we use, that we will be safe to do that. So we have not overextended that percentage. I know that you guys had another budget in front of you that was also 20% there. We are being as frugal as we can with that increase, and in feeling that it's very safe to go with this percentage instead of 20. Heating oil, a little bit of an increase there as well. But we're lucky that we are locked in now. And in being locked in, should those increases go up, and we thank Sherry for that, if those increases go up, we should still be able to remain within the amount that we've budgeted. Once again, these are the total classroom supplies, and you'll see again, no increases. And you'll notice as you go through what we give you, we're talking about small amounts as well for each grade here. So we are fantastically optimistic that we're going to make it through okay. Whoops, keeps doing that. Okay, so what we need, here's the numbers there, and you had that in the packet that I emailed to you guys. If you look, the bottom line for 2021 was the 3.9 million. The bottom line in terms of what we need with those 5 increases that we spoke about, the outplacement, the MRF, transportation, the MRF, and the heating oil, in addition to the salaries, those 5 things, they add up to 220, 387 with the 90,000 for the outplacement for the student, for a total of 4.122. And there's the breakdown, so you can see. If we did not have the obligation for the outplacement, you can see it would be 130,387. The utilities, the MRF, the transportation, and the salaries. And when we add the outplacement in there, it goes to 220. So what we are hoping that the taxpayers will help with this year is to reallocate funds, educational dollars that are savings elsewhere, to make sure that we can meet this need here at AES and have that 4.122. Again, optimistically speaking, our numbers are going up, and I know that there's a decline at the middle and high school level. I know that their student population has declined, but we anticipate that we're going to stay steady where we are and potentially increase over the next few years. We're not anticipating a decline in our student population at all over the next couple of years. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Jerry. I guess we'll open it up to members of the Board of Finance. If you have any questions for Valerie or Jerry or the board.
Sherry's still on there.
I've got a question.
Louise?
Yeah, Valerie, what was the outpatient threshold again?
The
Did you
outpatient threshold, what do you mean?
Outplacement.
You mean to get for the excess cost?
Yes. What was the threshold where you said you didn't meet that yet?
Right. So Louise, the way it works is it's 4.5%. I mean, a 4.5 times your per pupil spending. And then you can apply for like rebate on that. And if it's approved, they have certain amounts up to 70%. And so we have to take the cost for each student, and that has to meet the threshold of 4.5 times what your cost is.
Okay, so it's not like a flat dollar amount.
No, and that, Louise, honestly, I was on a call with a lot of superintendents the other day from the small districts. That's what it's called, small district supers. And it's very tough. It kills the small districts. Because a small district can have just 3 or 4 kids, and that could wind up, in some cases, a third of the budget of little towns.
Now,
So-
if the student stops or changes during the year, are the tuitions refunded or prorated?
The tuitions are not paid, Louise, all at one lump sum. The tuitions are paid monthly. And why they do that too is because you're responsible for all the costs associated with that student. So there's a per day tuition cost. And then if a child's program changes and they need something else, that gets added then to your bill. And so you could have a child that gets placed out and you have X number of dollars for tuition, $391 a day. And then if that child winds up needing more services, a speech service or a paraprofessional or a different transportation, that gets added to it. So again, that's an estimate that we put in there, but based on the other 2 that we have, we are fairly confident that this is a very, very accurate estimation.
Okay, thanks, Valerie.
Val, this is Rob, real quick. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it's fairly unlikely once somebody is outplaced that we're going to get them back, right?
Yeah, because thanks for bringing that up, Robert, because just so that anybody who does not know a lot about that process, no district does it lightly, as you can imagine, because, we want the least restrictive environment for a student, but we also want to service their needs the best that we can in-house if it's possible. So before a child is placed in a program that's not our program, we've already gone through a variety of things. First, there are tiered supports within the classroom. Can the classroom teacher and potentially a special education teacher or specialist manage to provide services? If not, then oftentimes it's moved to the next level. Potentially testing is done to see if maybe we're not meeting the needs for an identified purpose with that student. Sometimes then that's when you would see them adding a paraprofessional. Maybe that is the way to go, the strategy to utilize. So there are these steps along the way, all the way up until we realize at a certain point that we cannot service the needs of a child. And that's when we then have to look for another place for their needs to be serviced. So yeah, Robert, once they are placed out, oftentimes that's where they wind up because we've already gone through all those other steps and determined that we couldn't meet their needs. But annually, just like with a child that does attend AES, their program is reviewed on a regular basis to see if that need has changed. That absolutely does happen on an annual basis.
Thanks, Val.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Joanne?
I had a quick question.
Okay, go ahead, Linda.
I had noticed I had gone through the budget earlier today, and it looks like the line item for psychologists and social workers has gone down. That seemed a little strange at what we've gone through the last 2 years.
So I'm glad you brought that up because it's the AHM that we use for Mr. Fish over there. So what happened was a couple of years ago, we had a psychologist as well as the social work services that came through AHM. And as you know, from the town budget, last year, we switched the town's contract so that AHM as an umbrella for the people of the town of Andover, that contract is covered under Eric's budget. Well, in addition to that, we also, because we didn't have the ability to have a full-time social worker, we loved the social worker that was working in our school that came with the contract, the day and a half, that kind of comes, I'll say, for free with the contract that the town pays. And so last year, our school psychologist retired. And so what we did was we increased our contract with AHM for those services. And we had our social worker with us a little bit more this year in hopes that since she was already familiar with the school, that she would be able to service all of our needs. So we paid that additional contract like we always had and it kind of upped the price, Linda. It was, I think, 21 before, and then it went up. What we found was, although she's very effective and we love her, there's certain things that she's not certified to do that we do need to have a psychologist for. So we posted it earlier this year, things like testing for IEPs. She can't do any testing for the triennial reviews for kids. So we do have to have a psychologist. And we posted it. The reason why those numbers are about $10,000 different than they would be normally is since SEL, social emotional learning, has been very big this year, obviously with COVID, people understanding that the needs go up. There was a grant that came in that was only able to be used for things like that. So that additional 10,000 for the social work will be paid for out of a grant. There was no reason for me to add it in. But that extra day, Linda, is going to be pushed over to a psychologist from the social worker. So we're just reallocating from one area to the other and then taking the 10,000 out and putting that in a grant.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. But we're not reducing services to the kids. It's just being separated.
Okay, thank you. Joanne had asked what's up for questions.
I have a few questions. So if you don't, thank you, Valerie, for being with us tonight. And since we have you, I'll just have a few questions. I've gone to a couple of the budget workshops, so I've heard, how you pieced it together, but just randomly, because we were talking about the outplaced student that you added to the budget for next year. Is that the same student from this year's edition, but counting? Okay.
Yes, it's the same one.
So
Yes.
it's not an additional.
Nope. You're
Okay.
absolutely right. It was the one that we were talking about that wasn't in last year's budget. So it's a
Right.
surprise to us this year. But now, yes, Joanne, now we're planning for it.
And that's the total cost, transportation, everything that's going to go with that student.
Mhm.
Okay. And just because I have several, our current enrollment, is it made up, how many out of town students, I know that you might have a few preschoolers that come in from out of town. How many of the 193 are not Andover students or residents?
Actually, I know John is on here. John, is it correct to say there are 2, but that they will not be out of town next year?
Yeah, yes, that's right.
Yeah. So Joanne, they are out of town now. I wanted to make sure I was still accurate. They are paying a tuition because they're out of town now, but by next year they will be residing in town. By the
I
start
thought
of
maybe the number would be higher, so that is good. The enrollment's going up. Yeah. Just to get, I noticed in your presentation you talked about Power School, which I know well. Was that a budgeted item for last year? It was in our budget to install that software and.
So it wasn't, quote, a budgeted item, but what was budgeted was we had a student information system called Tyler Sys.
Yeah.
So we replaced Tyler Sys with the Power School. And the only difference, the big difference, because I know that, you spend days in a school, the only big difference for us in implementing that this year had been, I wouldn't say big, but the only difference going from Tyler to Power School was like the PD on that, the professional development, and our tech person at the school, our teacher there, she did a lot of that on her own time. in making sure that she could learn that and then teach everybody else. So kudos to her for that. I know we don't usually talk about names, but it's Christina Frazier. So when you see her, just know that she's got a lot of free time. When I say free time, I mean time she wasn't paid for to teach
that in a school for sure. Yeah.
She was so motivated and ambitious to get that in. Years
That's
ago.
the student, sorry, Valerie, that's the student database and everything that goes along with it.
Yes,
Okay.
because what we found,
Attendance,
honestly,
yeah.
Joanne, what we found was Tyler Sis years ago, when the former super business manager and John had implemented it, they got kind of a really good deal on it. And it was one of those, hey, you know, you got to take this one because it's the cheapest around. And it never really was user friendly. But what John and I found when we started to go through things a year ago was, wait a minute, we're looking at the bill and we're saying this isn't a whole lot cheaper than Power School. And yet it's not user friendly and everybody else uses Power School. So the switch was really necessary, but it also was not a significant increase for us at all to do so. If anything, being compatible with every other town now is going to make it well worthwhile.
Yeah, since I'm familiar with it, and I didn't remember hearing about it during the budget season last year, so, okay. And I noticed you said for the non-certified staff, get MRF, or, part of MRF for retirement. And I know that that's a pricey, I've talked about it at town meetings, it's a high level percentage of someone's salary. Is that required that they participate, you're non-certified? I know the town has to be in. If one is in, they all have to be in.
It's not like all of our employees are in it. There are certain employees in it. Like Sherry as a business manager is in MRF. And so, yes, it's required. But remember, most of our staff is a teaching staff. They're under a teacher's contract. So it's TRB. And we as a district don't pay their TRB. They pay them. So that's of no cost. It's just the ones that fall under that municipal, which is why it was an increase for us, but not as significant as, let's say, the town side's going to be, because all of their employees are on MRF. We don't have many MRF. Most of our staff is TRB, teacher retirement.
Okay. All right. I'm getting through these. And just for, while we have you here, I know we have the classroom teaching staff. And, from coming to the meetings, I know we have in Andover, I believe you have 2 special ed teachers. I'm thinking of non-classroom. We have probably the technology teacher, Christina, that you referenced, and I've heard her spoken of. Okay. I believe she used to be a classroom teacher, and then did she transition to that role? Only because I know her from my kids. And then you have 2 intervention teachers, the reading specialist you spoke of, and an ELA teacher. Okay. Is that on a math? Oh,
Yes.
math and reading.
Christina Frazier is the one that does that.
Oh, that's her. So she's all of those things. So one person. All right. I can't fault that. I thought, so there's not 3 teachers. She's one person that does those 3 functions.
This year, this year she is the one that does tech and math, and there's another teacher that does the reading. That's
Krista Caraboni, I think, is who you're thinking of, Joanne. But it's just, as somebody who's got 2 kids in that school and who've worked with both of those people, they do move around a little bit, but generally speaking, one is more like math and technology and one is language. But they're both Krista, so it can get a little confusing.
I know, I haven't kept up with the names, so.
Oh yeah, but both are great. My kids have had really good experiences with both of them.
Okay. And actually, Robert, I'm glad you said that, because in addition to that, there's other things that we don't have to have. They do a lot when we get to SBAC testing. So having another person on staff that has to be your testing coordinator, they wear that hat along with John. Yes, so there's a lot of hats they wear. We utilize them a lot.
Thank you for that. I know you sent the stuff today and I appreciate that. I didn't have as much time in my day after work to look at all of it. I might have little questions down the line, but that's it for me for now.
Okay, thank you, Joanne. Other questions? Diane?
Yep, I have a question. So if I'm understanding this correctly, there are some numbers in this spreadsheet of the budget that are offset by grant money. Is that correct in my assumption? So
Yes.
some numbers in this spreadsheet are net numbers, not gross numbers. Is that correct? Like say teacher salaries or?
Yes.
So I'm interested in knowing the data behind the numbers. So if someone could just break out for me which numbers on this budget spreadsheet are net, they're not gross, and what grants get applied to those numbers. And if you could identify it by, position or something, that would be fine. So if teachers are, $5,000, but you apply a grant for $1,000, and I only see 4,000 on the spreadsheet, I want to understand what grant funds that and what area it's in. You follow what I'm saying?
I do.
Not sure if I'm making myself clear or not.
Yeah, it is something we kind of talked about. It is helpful because typically what you would have is if you have both a positive and negative applied to a specific account or expense, you'd show them separately as separate line items. So I think that's what Diane is getting at, right, Diane?
Yeah, I just want to see the detail behind that number, how you got to that number and what it's made up of. So,
Also, that slide that has the title grants.
yeah, but I want to know specifically. So how many teachers are paid by that grant money? So
Well,
if
some of them were $3,000, some of them are 10,000. So some of the grants have to all be added together for one person.
so if you can look at how you broke out your line items on your budget, because you have everything broken out by teachers, preschool teachers, special ed teachers. If any of those numbers on there are net numbers and not the true total cost, just give me what the grant funds that are against those numbers so I can know what the big picture is.
Okay, so ones that are not budget.
Valerie,
Yes.
Valerie, we can do that. We can come up with something on that.
Yeah, just at the bottom of any,
Yeah.
before you have any subtotal, just show the offsetting grant would be really, and then the true cost. of each
Yeah,
line.
I understand what you're asking, so
Okay.
I will go over it with Valerie, and then we'll provide that, okay?
I wrote it down.
I thank you for getting all the actuals, and it's very important for me as a person to have the actuals and to have the year to date because it shows me where we've been, where we're going. So I haven't had a total chance to analyze this yet, so I'm sure I will have more questions, but that'll be in the future.
Okay, you can email us.
Okay, thanks.
On that, if you're right. You're welcome.
Thanks, Sherry, for doing that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions from board members for Valerie or Jerry, Linda?
Hi, I was just sitting here thinking last year there was a big controversy in towns about the class sizes. So I was just wondering what the class sizes were going to be like this year.
That was in one of our, let me get that for you. That was in one of our budget seminars. So hang on one second and I'll look up the exact ones for you. There will be 13 classrooms. And hang on, let me look that up. Okay. So if you guys are interested in that, it is in where I sent you all of the slides. It would be in the budget building seminar number 5 from January 25th. And if you noticed, it has our current class size for this year and enrollment, and then it has our projected for next year. So we have 2 pre-K classes of 14. We have 2 kindergarten classes, and remember that's an anticipated number based on what we know about the kids coming in for pre-K because we have admissions still going on. Kindergarten would be 2 classes, roughly of 14 and 14. Grade 1, we still have 38 kids, and so there would be a 13, 13, and a 12. Grade 2, we will have 21 students and I'll go back to this in a second. Grade 3, we have 25 students. Rather than do a class of 10 and a class of 11 and a class of 12 and a class of 13, there will be 3 classrooms, a 2, a 3, and a 2-3. And there will be 15, 15, and 16. Grade 4 will have 19, 1 classroom. Grade 5 will have 18, 1 classroom, and grade 6 will have 20, 1 classroom. So the smallest class next year is a first grade class of 12, and the largest class is 20.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions from the board? Joanne?
I did have one further one as I was sitting. I'm not sure he keeps a list, or if it's something we get automatically, maybe at the point in the year yet where you do budget transfers, maybe money that you haven't expended yet, then you might need in a line item. Have we gotten to that point, or is that more closer to May?
Share?
Yeah, we're gonna be working on that. That's, the transfers are probably gonna come in April. And we're gonna meet together and go over that, and then, we'll be able to give you that information.
Thank you. With my first, is that something automatic, Sherry? Do you send that over to us? Do we, or? do we
Well,
just-
I will, like I said, I'll consult with, the superintendent, and then we'll see what we can do, but that doesn't happen until April and May.
That's what I thought, and I didn't have a chance to look through everything today, like I said, after work, but no, thank you. I'm sure that
You're welcome.
And Joanne, those have to be approved by the Board of Ed. So
Mhm.
if at a board meeting, Sherry and I don't just do them. It goes
No,
to
no, I knew the process.
so it'll definitely be in the minutes too.
Okay, thank you. That's great. That's good, yeah.
Additional questions?
I think that's it for me now.
Going once? Going twice? Okay, well, thank you, Valerie, and thank you, Jerry, and thank you, board members, for your participation and assistance. We appreciate it. Sure, this isn't the last we'll be hearing from you over this process, but it's a long process, as we all know, and we appreciate your input. Okay, thanks very much. We'll move on to the next item in our agenda, which is just a general action item or agenda item for the budget workshop for fiscal year 2022-2023 proposed budget. So this is open discussion for the Board of Finance members. You can go ahead and make any comments, or we can tackle any specific topics that anybody wants to bring before the board.
Mark, can I make one quick comment first?
You can.
I was just going to suggest that the focus of the next budget should be public works and the expenditures of public works. Because in the grand scheme of things, that's probably the next greatest line item we have. And the town will be prepared to speak to that at the next meeting if the board so desires. I'll have the public works supervisor here.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. And Eric, you had mentioned that in his email that he sent earlier. I think that's a good idea. It's a pretty significant line item. We did have a lot of questions in some of the previous meetings about it. So I think that that's a good opportunity for us to do that so that we don't, have too much back and forth and things don't get confused. Anybody in the board have a comment or a different idea on that?
Seems like a good plan to me.
Okay. All right, we'll plan on that. I think you said you already talked to Jay about being there, right? So, okay, great. Appreciate it. Okay, so that being said, then we can move on to other agenda items and leave public works at least for next week. Joanne, so you had your hand
I'm
up.
sorry, and I know that we're on to another topic, but I just wanted to ask, if I could ask one more thing of Valerie, I'm sorry.
Now's
Valerie,
your
not
chance.
about the budget, not about what? Oh,
Now's
wrap
your
it
chance.
into-
Yeah, while they're here.
I know, because I don't want to email, I don't want to, I know how busy she is. Do you have specific days, Valerie, that you're in Andover? I thought of that afterward. I know you do too. I can't even imagine being you because I know you probably put a lot of effort into both when you do two jobs, but.
It depends on the week. It depends on what's going on. It depends on that. I'm definitely there a lot more often. Sometimes, if there's, I'll wind up coming for a half a day. It really depends. If I'm needed here specifically, they really can put whatever they need to in the schedule and I make it work during the course of the week. So, no, not one particular day.
I wouldn't want to send you something on your off day, but I know, you can get back to it whenever.
Off day?
I know.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Non-Andover
One of
day.
those, right?
Every day that ends in a day is a work day.
Yep, understood. Thank you. That came to mind after.
I also had a question. Thanks, John. I also had a question. I forgot about this. I wrote it down earlier in the presentation. You were talking about being self-insured for some of the, so that obviously has a lot of benefits. The company I work for is similarly, positioned, but it also has risks. So is there some kind of stop loss insurance on top of that you guys have engaged in? I would assume so, right? So.
Absolutely.
Way too much risk for a small district. Yeah.
Mark, would I tell you how impressed you all would be with the way this is set up? Sherry could tell you too. We have Chuck Petriconi that works with us from Brown & Brown. And we are extremely lucky with this consortium because we reap the benefits through us, through the town, and through RAM. And when I tell you, not only in the other district, but many other districts that my colleagues are in, they're talking about upwards of 15 to 20% increases in premiums in other towns. And we're not. When you say stop loss, we have every insurance that you can imagine in place. Chuck, the guy who helps this consortium oversee things, he has never seen, he keeps saying, I have not seen a consortium work as successfully as this one has because, Mark, every stop loss that you could have in there, every potential insurance that you could have on your insurance, we have.
So it's part of the whole package that you.
Part of the whole package.
Okay, that's good. It made sense. I just thought I'd ask the question.
Yep. Actually, you know what? Let me talk to Sherry. I know we both have it back at the office, but just so that the Board of Finance has it, because it would probably be helpful for you guys, not only in planning and looking at the town's budget and our budget and RAM's budget from years to come now, but I will send you guys the information on kind of the snapshot of exactly how well the consortium is doing right now. And we are very grateful for how well it's managed. As a town, I will tell you that, but every one of those insurances is in place and I'll make sure you guys get that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on with additional board discussion, questions, or any specific topics we want to tackle tonight. Diane?
Well, Sherry had sent over the updated budget spreadsheet with the revenue tab completed with the actuals in there. And I think I had asked for actuals and year-to-date, but if we can just get a year-to-date revenue report, I would be happy with that. It doesn't have to be in the column. But I'm trying to look at the numbers that Sherry put in there, and they're not audited numbers yet, but they're the numbers. Eric had sent out a spreadsheet of how he got the taxes, and the numbers don't jive. So between what the document Eric sent and what Sherry put together, I'm getting different things. So for example, on the revenue tab, the first thing, what would be interest dash taxes? Sherry said 35,944 was the actual revenue collected for 2021, not audited. And I think Eric had a different number for that.
Okay, I can tell you part of the discrepancy is for all of those, I took a 12-month snapshot that was the last 12 months of data I had available. So it blended 2 fiscal years. So that's part of, I would imagine, the issue.
So let me go to your document. Hold on, because I want to
Yeah,
get
that would probably do it, yeah.
what you sent me. You sent me a tax collection 1-year data. So I have a revenue for 2021 summary that shows total interest collected of 61,654. So those numbers should be the same between your document and Sherry's document. And I'm just wondering why they're so different.
Because what I'm showing you, what I showed you was not the fiscal year 2021 data. It's partially fiscal year 2021 data and part of 21-22 data.
But each year is broken out separately on this document you sent me. So I have.
Right.
total
I meant for the
21.
You know, when I summarized it, that I can't answer.
Okay. So that's a mystery to me. So, you know, because it's significantly off. So someone's got to tell me what the right number is. So if we can look at that. And then you have in the 2021 revenue collection year, you have a prior year tax number, and Sherry came back and has 0 in a prior year tax number. So I don't know why Sherry didn't come up with, have a number. I can share my screen if you guys want to see.
Yeah,
That would be good, Diane. I'm trying to find that.
You know, do I have rights to share screen? Let me try share screen. Screen
I
two.
gave you permission.
Oops. You can't see it, right?
Kind of small.
Can you see it at all?
Yeah, I can see it, but it takes a good sized monitor, yeah. Really.
Hold on, it's not a big monitor. Does that help? Can you see it better now? No. Hold on. It's when you have 2 monitors, you get all screwed up. So you can't see this. I can't see what you guys see.
Well, we're seeing the sheet that shows the scan page 2020, 2020, whatever.
Yeah. So,
Right.
so I see for 2021 revenue, prior year tax 158,776. And then when I look at the spreadsheet, can you see this spreadsheet?
Yep.
Sherry still has 0 in here for actual revenue numbers for 2021.
Yep.
I don't know where this document comes from. You know, I'm really looking for something coming out of our accounting systems that we book the revenue.
So that document right there is, so I get a running record from the tax collector. It's on one of the shared drives that I have. So if I need to look at revenue, because she updates it, you know, pretty regularly, usually bi-monthly. This was an older version, but I just, you know, when I have questions about it, I just pull that report. I don't actually know how this data flows to the finance office. That's a Sherry question, not an Eric
Okay.
question.
Yeah. So I'm looking for the data that's actually in our accounting software for 2021. I want to make sure the numbers are the same.
Right.
So someone can give me some help on clarity on that. And that fees line that you have on your sheet there that you gave me, Eric, is that late fees kind of thing?
Which phase line?
The last column says fees. I don't know what it means. So,
Yeah, well, so you get late So we can charge both interest and late fees.
Right, so I'm assuming is that late fees? I'm just trying to confirm.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so where does that flow onto this revenue sheet tab? If we have late fees, where does that come in?
Good question. I can't say that I can answer that.
Okay, all right, so I just want to make sure our net revenue numbers are reasonable and correct. And so we just
Sure.
got to balance them against last year and year to date and make sure they all line up. That's all I want to do.
Yep.
So if everybody can follow me on that. So that's a takeaway from tonight on this to get clarity on that.
But
Okay.
that's, Eric, you know what Diane's looking for there with Sherry, you can check that out.
Yeah, generally.
Yeah, if you need clarification, you can always revisit it, email or whatever.
Just want to make sure everybody gets what I'm looking for. I'm trying to really create a baseline to make sure our revenue projections are reasonable. And we've got, so
Yeah.
that's all.
All right,
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead, Eric.
I was going to say one of the things that I'm slightly nervous about is we were more aggressive in trying to match exact revenue to prior years. In some things it's difficult to do. Like, for instance, because we changed fee structure and software for the building department, the fees associated with that are very different than in the past. So, I initially forecasted it based on, only about 4.5 months of data. But looking at it now, it looks like we're probably okay. And my judgment is probably pretty good. So I was happy about that. But that's assuming the level of building stays the same from year to year. And as you know, as oil prices go up and as interest rates goes up, I mean, there's two places that could have a huge effect. The first is the revenue taken in by the town clerk's office. And the reason is every time a house gets sold, a chunk of that, the town gets a chunk of money every time a house gets sold. Last year, a lot of high-end houses went in Andover. So that number was quite a bit higher last year. I don't know whether that's going to hold or not. I don't know. I mean, I made the best guess I could based on last year's numbers, based on the, kind of the average monthly fees flowing into that office. But, if it was 20% lower, or 20% higher, it wouldn't surprise me. So I don't know. It just seems like the revenue and the big numbers like ECS, yeah, they're fixed. Most of the state grant aid, those things are fixed. But in terms of the revenue we generate, it's more difficult. The other thing I was going to ask is that, and Sherry and I discussed it today, but we didn't put it in the budget because, you already got a budget from the Board of Selectmen. So any changes now really need to come from you. And what you want is that the transfer station fees went up from the Board of Selectmen. So that number should increase, it's like $42,000 or $43,000. And I can put in the exact figure if you want it, but just scaled off what we get on an average year times the increase in fees from $40 to $50.
So we have records of the number of permits we've issued. So we just take that number because they all renew in July. Is that correct?
Well, we get them all through the year. And like, if you look at those two numbers, like if you look at the revenue number, like if you pulled up the screen for revenue and you look, there's a big discrepancy on those previous 3 or 4 years. Went from about $36,000 to down to 22, up to 44. That occurred because of COVID, we delayed the issuing of permits for 1 year. So a lot of our permits come in just before July and get booked to the previous fiscal year. And then the ones booked coming in after July get booked to the current fiscal year. So there was kind of a screwy thing, but we've been averaging around, around 35,000 in fees plus or minus 1,000. So we're going to go up, by, 5 over 4 times that.
Let me ask a question in a different way. Our permits are good for a year, correct?
Correct.
And do they run on the fiscal year? Do they all expire June 30th? So everybody has to get a new one?
They do.
So why can't we just extrapolate the number of permits we've issued times the new fee, and that be our revenue number for this year, assuming everybody renews?
Well, that's basically what we do, but remember the complicating factor is that each household is allowed up to 2 permits for that same fee. So not every household has 2. Some households have 3 and pay an additional fee.
Well, can't you do
so
it
you
by
can't-
address?
I mean, you can, but we've sat down and counted the number of permits issued in a year. We know what we're issuing. The revenue stream up to this point has been basically $35,000 a year in permitting, and we know we're going up from $40 to $50. So we can pretty well estimate what we're going to end up with fees.
Well, wouldn't you want to know how many permits we've issued?
Why would you care? I only want to know how much money we're getting.
It's a simple calculation. I know we have this many permits. I mean, hoping they all renew. I mean, people don't have to keep them if they don't want to.
I would
Well,
think
but-
we have records on that. It just seems like, and just
do,
like
but-
you said, Diane. Yeah.
But see, permits are in different categories. Like, for instance, I have a permit that I paid $40 for. But somebody else might have 2 cars. So each of those permits only cost them $25.
Yeah, but
So
you
not
have,
every
Yeah, but
permit
we
is
don't
the same.
care about, we just, right? Doesn't,
yeah, I guess you tie it to the person's residence, right?
right. We just care about the household. If they get 2, it seems
That's
like,
okay, right.
I
I
feel
guess
like.
if it's $50 per household, they get up to 2 vehicles in it.
Right, but there's some households that have 4 or 5 stickers. So
Yeah,
you
but I
can't
don't-
just do by household.
But that would be pretty rare, I would think.
I would-
There are outliers, sure.
So.
But if we had a list of households or addresses, just did an estimate based on the number, I mean, it seems like we could get an estimate.
If you
I'm
want
not
the
making-
exact number of
Does not
permits
have a
broken
sticker,
out,
so-
I will
Yeah.
supply that to you. But what I'm saying is that it scales directly off of the cost per permit. So if you increase the cost per permit, $10 a permit, you can pretty well figure out what the difference in revenue is, assuming the same number of people get stickers.
I'm trying to think, how would you come up with that baseline? How would you know what the $10 factor to multiply it by to come up with a new number? I'm
So
not following that. So,
take $35,000,
yeah,
multiply it by 5 over 4. What do you get?
You're just multiplying it by the percentage increase in fees, assuming that the baseline remains the same. I mean, I don't think it's an unreasonable way to approach this, in my view.
then just do the math for me so I can see the calculation. That's all I want to know. I wanna
Basically
know how we got-
$44,000. $43,750 if you want to be exact.
I don't have enough light here to even see my calculator, sorry. But just put the number in then and put in the notes how it was derived. That's all we need.
Okay. Happy to do that.
All right. One other question I have. Okay, so you use a lot of acronyms, Eric. You put ZEO, IWWW. I don't know what all those means. I'm trying to figure that out. But I see from one of your write-ups that you said the zoning enforcement officer is going from 10 to 15 hours. My question is that a shared service or is that an employee? And where is that in the budget?
Okay, so there are, if you look at the land use department overall, you have a shared service for the building official.
I'm just
And
talking
then-
about why we're increasing to 10, 15 hours. That's all I want to know. Who is that and where is it?
So he is the zoning official. And the zoning official has his own budgeted line item. And
Salary
me-
zoning agent, that's him?
that's him.
So that does not, so when I go look at that salary spreadsheet that we have for the employees, then I'm assuming that's at Jim Halsey? Is that the correct person?
Correct.
Okay. Does the numbers on the salary spreadsheet account for 15 hours? Is this the 15-hour number or a 10-hour number? That's my question. Because it's the same number, so I can't tell whether the extra 5 hours was built into here or not.
That is a really good question. I
I
certainly
see the town
thought it
personnel
was,
costs.
but it does not look like it.
Right, so his number needs to be fixed then, because it's going to be more than that. Because that's just the 3% raise number. We're going to give him another 5 hours, so we need to up it another 5 hours.
Correct. Good catch.
Detail person, sorry, you guys have to bear the brunt of it.
No, that's great. Happy for that. I'd rather find out now than, be doing a transfer later to figure out how to cover it.
Can you still see
Diane,
my?
just a heads up, we're still viewing your screen, just so you're
Okay.
aware. Doesn't matter.
So this is a salary sheet I'm talking about, and I have some yellow highlights that I kind of have some questions on.
Okay, we're not seeing that.
You're not seeing it?
No, we
No.
just see your blue background.
Oh, gosh, I'm sharing screen too. Sorry, hold on. I'll move you to screen two. How's that? Does that work?
There you go.
That works.
Okay, so election officials.
Right.
And I don't see any increase in here. I see $16,000. And I did modify this, sorry, because I could not understand your language.
Okay, so so that was done because last year, due to COVID and a series of requirements, the cost for election officials last year, our overall costs went up quite a bit. The two moderators, which is Wally Barton and Linda Derrick, felt that they could hold the same budget this year because they need basically less total hours and less total people per election than they did before. So that's why there's no
salary increase for them in this fiscal year coming up.
correct.
Can I just ask a quick question? Are we allowed to put this out publicly with everyone's names on it? I just want to make sure. I mean, I know we usually have different
Yeah,
spreadsheets.
Good
I
point.
just want to make sure we take this down, maybe. I don't know. I just want to make sure.
We've tried not to share this publicly. We normally don't, but the reality is that all of this is FOIA-able. So if somebody actually asks me for it, I'm legally obligated to supply it anyway. So,
Right, and I know that people can figure it out. I just wanted to make sure so that we.
Sure.
I mean, I can stop sharing my screen and just ask the questions,
Sure.
Probably more appropriate.
so I'll just do that. Okay. So I am on to, there's a person, and I hate to use her name because I don't have a position name. I guess it's library clerk.
Okay.
There's two people with the same name with different rates of pay, same hours. I
Sure.
don't know what that means.
So that means that one individual holds two different tasks at the library and is paid at different rates depending on what she's doing for the library. And that's a library board decision, not a Eric or Board of
Okay,
Selectmen decision.
so the second item doesn't have any increase in it, so we're not doing any increase to that person at all.
I mean, that comes directly from the library board. That's the budget they've requested. So I don't,
So I would rather have notes in here saying no increase, so we know we didn't miss it. So we have,
okay.
some kind of,
So the other thing I want to tell you is that, I mean, we don't, let's see, if you look at the library, all we do for the library, the budget for the library has essentially two major line items. It has payroll and it has operations. If you look at the payroll line item, it has a 3% across the board increase. So, it is possible the salary sheet that I have is incorrect for that, and there should have been a 3% increase. But what I don't know is because for all those positions, I don't know what hours necessarily they're forecasting, which is why it's difficult for us to put that information in there. And we don't, honestly, we pay the library two things. We pay for operations and we budget for the payroll they tell us to budget for.
right.
If that makes sense.
But in this salary spreadsheet where we have their hours per week, and we are bringing some people up to minimum wage next year, so we have those items in there, so we should be showing them. So I don't,
The one person with two different wages, sometimes she's the children's librarian and does children's programming, and the other time she's paid as just a regular library clerk. And when it comes to raises, the library, only the Board of Selectmen can give raises. So the library really has nothing to do with the salary amounts because the library board cannot raise or.
right, so I thought in the Board of Selectmen's budget that they were giving all non-union people 3% across the board.
Well, that's what the library board thought too.
And then bringing up the people up to minimum wage if they were below minimum wage.
Let me ask you a question if I could interject. Are we just trying to establish that we have correct data here? Because I'm not sure this ends up being that material to the bounds budget. And I don't want to, stifle a conversation. I do think it's very important that we have this data tie out. But
I really want the data to tie out because we've made mistakes in the data before and salary data. And I think
no,
our
we
budget's
just
gonna be
have one we
tight.
have to rectify, right? So
We
if
need to
you're
have-
accurate, you're absolutely correct there. Yeah.
And it should be accurate. We
Sure.
should know what people are getting paid and
Okay.
what it is. I'm just asking to understand what you presented because there's holes in it. It's not complete.
Yeah. I'll put a note to review the data for library payroll.
Diane, are you going to add it to Sherry's question list maybe?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that.
Yeah,
The
I think it's
last
probably the
the
best.
last name on the list is just a name without a position. Do you know what position this person is?
Hang on a second. Let me pull up that graph. Sorry, I have 12 Excel spreadsheets open at the moment, so I gotta close a couple first. Da, 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 da. Actually, I don't have that. Just tell me their names.
Stephen Postemski.
Oh, sure. Stephen Potensky. He is our assistant fire marshal.
Okay.
Oh, it says Fire Marshal 2, and then there's 2 names on different lines. Yeah.
Yeah, but this name at the bottom doesn't have any name on it.
But if you look right above, it says Fire Marshal with a 2 in parentheses. And then there's a name on each line.
Yeah, but there should be a position on each line. Sorry.
Yeah, probably just need to be carried down. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so now I know who that is. Oh, I'm going to ask one question. Senior transportation drivers, we have two. I don't see any increase in here, the spreadsheet for them.
There should have been senior. What's the line item for senior transportation again?
It's like, say,
They're blank under new rate,
yeah, new rate is blank.
like
There's-
15, 16, 17.
Oh, okay. So there are 2 drivers. They both make different rates. They will both get the same 3% raise as everybody else. The reason we didn't break it out is because their hours are so variable for week to week that it's hard to estimate. So what we're doing is we're scaling that budget based on the average number of trips we're taking and the trend line of the trips we're taking per year. That's how we determined what we budget for that. And we don't budget for individuals, we budget for senior transportation as a whole.
All right, that makes sense. I do think though that it's confusing when there's no rate shown. So I think part of what, I guess you really can't even do it. I see what you're saying. That new rate is total or whatever. But if
You could
you
just
show the
say what their
3%,
new hourly rate would be. For
yeah,
this.
the hourly rate could be there. That way there's understanding that it hasn't been forgotten. I think that's part of what we want to establish, right?
And I think you should memorialize for the budget how we came up with the annual cost, because when we go over or under, we're going to want to know, how did we get to that number last year to see if our estimate works. We need to snapshot that in a note or somewhere so we have it next to the item so we know how we came up with it. Because we'll talk about it next year. How did we do that? Nobody will know. Because I know the trips are increasing and I don't expect that they're going to go down. The population is aging, so.
Correct. Yeah, we're on a pretty hard upward trajectory. The one thing I did want to talk about with senior transportation is going to be our gas budget. While we have a lock-in for diesel, we buy gasoline, pretty much on the open market. And that's definitely a problem.
But we've got to do some extrapolation based on current usage or something over the last, and apply the new.
Right. So
we have the number of gallons we've bought in the last, say, 6 months this year, and then just apply what we think the estimated, what the current going rate of gas is. I mean, we can't predict the future, but.
Yeah, no, that's all I'm saying is we can, the question becomes, what do you use for your estimate as the cost of gas? So right now, we've already exceeded the current year budget. We're already over budget on gas and we got 4 months to go. So that's the fuel for dial-a-ride, which we level budgeted this year, but has to be wrong.
Got to be wrong. It's not going to be the same as last year, right?
Right, and the reason we did that is because when we looked at last year's expenses, last year's expenses were considerably lower. So it's hard to judge. And we were originally, gas was a lot cheaper in the fall when we first did this too. Our expenses in previous years have been well under the 3,000, but there's two problems with that. The first is we're getting rid of one in this current budget. We're getting rid of our diesel bus and we're going with a second gas bus, number one. So what I'm telling you is that I think that number is going to need to come up probably fairly considerably. I don't have an actual cost at this point, but that's one I was reviewing today. And I think our two lines for gas, which is here and for public works. I mean, we baked in an increase for public works, but I suspect even our increase for public works, may be low. That's one that's on my list to review. We budgeted an increase from last year, went from 5,700 to 8,000, but I suspect that's going to be low, and I think we're going to need to revise that upward again based on just current trends.
I think, yes, we should be basing it on current market.
But are we really going to assume that gas prices we're paying today are going to hold for the next year? I mean, because we're at pretty close to historic highs right now. That's the hard part.
Right. If you could do that, you wouldn't need to work for the town of Andover.
Yeah. Sell crystal balls on the side.
I mean,
Tough one. I mean, but it's
inflation's
clearly.
going there in the next year. So
I couldn't hear you, Dan. What was that?
I don't think inflation's going anywhere in the next year. Takes a long time for that inflation cycle to wind down.
Sure. Yeah. The fuel prices are a lot more volatile, but yeah, it's a tough one. But I agree that we need to be cautious about that. We don't want to be challenged at the end of the year. Better be pleasantly surprised. So I think you're right, Eric. We need to adjust it where we do it. How far? Somebody's guess,
I mean, I will come back to you with my best estimate based on, scaling off, what the relative numbers of trips I'm projecting for senior transportation, and then a better guess for public works.
Okay.
The only other thing that I have to cover is the spreadsheet that came back from Sherry with the answers to the questions that were on that spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet I'm keeping is information we need and questions we have, and try to send that back and forth. And I was asking about the connectivity grant, what is being used for in this year and in the proposed budget. And I don't think it's not road work. I know it's more than that. It's Center Street and the Veterans Field improvements for connectivity.
No. So if you want, I can send you the full grant, and all the EZIQC documentation. But in a nutshell, the town applied for DOT grant through their connectivity program. What that is that funds pedestrian and bicycle connections and kind of mobility stuff. So as part of that, we took the plan of conservation and development and the town's, kind of master plan for, pedestrian and cycling improvements. And we took one subsection. So we did two things. One, we talked the state into upgrading the traffic signal at the intersection of Route 6 and Long Hill. That doesn't show as a grant because we got them to tack it on to a standard state grant program. So we never saw any of that money. We never spent it, but we got about $150,000 improvement out of that. And we piggybacked that with the connectivity grant, which was about $300,000. And it did the sidewalk that runs down Long Hill, which is as far as we can go until that bridge is replaced. It will do a walkway in the front of the library, a redone handicapped ramp to the library, a new landing, new steps, and then across the street, On the rail trail side, we're gonna repave and redo the ramp up to the state rail trail. And then we're gonna put an additional trail head at Center Street. So there'll be an additional parking area there that's gonna have an information kiosk. It's gonna have a bike repair station, a couple of benches, a picnic table, just standard amenities, and a better cut through, and then bunch of signage. There's a couple other little things along with the grant, but that's the majority of what that grant is.
So can we just get that in writing so I can keep it on a spreadsheet so I know what it's for? Because it's not road work. The answer's not correct. That's all I'm looking for. I'm just trying to understand. I know we have that money now. I don't know what plans we have for spending it in this fiscal year and how much of that is getting spent for next fiscal year for the improvements we want to do. I think it's important for the town to know how we're spending money. That's all. That's all I'm asking. Okay, I had a question about rental income at Veterans Field, and the response back was the 500 rental fee has been shown as revenue in this account. Well, it's not. I was told the rental income from there was $7,500. So I'm very confused.
Yeah, it is 7,500.
Okay.
Not 500.
So that's the only thing. And then I see the library grant that kind of gives me, and based on the information that you gave me some narrative on some grant stuff, Eric, I'm piecing the stuff together. This library grant is eligible for certain things. We haven't spent all the money yet, but we have to spend it by the end of March, correct?
So
I don't know totally how much we've spent out of the budget that is being covered by this grant.
Okay, so we probably have, so we've gotten the receipts for that from the library within the last, say, 2 days from the library. So I don't think the journal entries have been done and all the bills paid, but that money has been spent essentially at this point.
So the grant has been plopped into their operating account, which is labeled on our budget as dues and fees, which is a wrong label, as a credit. I mean, as an income, netting against expenses. So those numbers are screwed up on our current expenditure report. So if we can get that fixed and then understand just, obviously the whole thing is we've got to spend all the money or we have to give it back, correct?
Yeah, I think. I mean, so basically what happened with that grant is that we gave them a list of the things that or the library gave them a list of the things that they felt were needed to, that were eligible under that program. They sent the money, and now we're bought the things. So
let's just make sure we get the bookkeeping right on it.
Okay, the library has ordered everything to that amount. We're just waiting for the items to arrive at the library.
Oh, that's good.
So the money has been spent.
And these are items above and beyond what would be normally in their operating budget, correct?
Right.
Make sure we got the right numbers when we're doing our comparison. And that's all the questions I have. So I will try and get this spreadsheet updated with current questions and update the things, but we've got a lot of information that's got to go back and forth. It's really hard. Eric, what you gave me for the grants was really nice, but it's really too much narrative. I'm just looking for.
But every time I send you a summary, you tell me you want the details. So
no, I just want high level. What is eligible? I don't need the regulation. If I wanted to read the regulation, I would have gone out and read it. So
right, okay.
The questions, I'm just going back to here. Let me find it. Simple, just so I make sure I'm explaining this clearly to everyone. So all I was looking for grants was the grants we got last fiscal year, total dollar amount, what are the eligibility things, what can you spend them on? And what costs we spent out of there. So if it was eligible for road improvement, we spent this much on road improvement. That's all I want to know. And then year to date, that's all. I think it's important for people to understand how much money we get on grants and how we spend it in the town, because there's a lot of money that we get spent that we don't tax people for to get things accomplished. And if we didn't have these, you know, our tax burden would be a lot higher.
Correct.
You know, and we do have to account for this money anyways, as far as a fiscal responsibility. So we should be able to know and account for every penny we spend and what we're spending on it, and that the items we're spending on is eligible to be spent on it. That's all. And it's just a couple sentences. What is the eligibility criteria for this? You know, just in a couple sentences, what is it meant to cover?
Okay.
Just so
So you
people
want,
understand that this grant is eligible for these items, because people see a grant and unless you tell them what you can spend it on, nobody knows.
okay, so what you're saying is you want me to take the grants document I have sent you, and you want me to condense it down to just the basics and resend, correct?
So you know what I'll do? If you want me to, I will create you an Excel template spreadsheet for how I want the information laid out. And you just fill in the cells. How's that?
That's fine.
That way it'll be all documented.
Right. I mean, part of the problem with a lot of these grants is that, you know, the grants get spent in some cases over multiple years, you know, and it's, and what do you know, and it's hard because there's often a big difference between the year you got the grant and the year you spent the grant, you know?
Right. But we've got a lot of money in grants. So I think we just need to account for them a little bit better and easier to get the data. I don't know how we keep all the data or any of that, which is I'm all for them being an account in our software so we can track the expenses and make sure and run reports off them. And we wouldn't be doing this all by manual process. So that's all. All right, now that I hogged everybody's time, sorry, but these are all the stuff that came in today and I just wrote down all these questions. I just want to get them out.
Yeah, there's a lot to cover, no doubt about it. And I think that the spirit of this is absolutely correct. We want to make sure and we have accurate information and that we're not making adjustments midstream either to the year or even in the budget process. Okay. Other questions, or Joanne?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Eric, do you have any idea, has RAM gotten in touch with you to let you know what they're going to do with the surplus that they discussed? Do we have a time frame on that to see if any of that chunk of money is good? I think their audit was finished. They spoke about how much money they're getting back. So have you heard anything?
They have not made a final decision as far as I know. I mean, their budget, honestly, their budget doesn't, about the time we have our town budget meeting is about when their budget is finalized, because they finalize it just before referendum. So even though their budget is part of our budget, we're not going to know, until very shortly before.
At our meeting, he says it's the RAM BOE budget isn't for the board until April 4th. So the Board of Ed of RAM isn't even voting on it until April 4th. So we won't have anything until then.
Yeah, I wondered, since we're asking questions, if I end up, I'm still listening. If I end up, I might have to turn my camera off. I don't know how long this is going. I'm still there, but I thank you for that. I just wondered because that's something to consider.
Sure.
Yeah, if memory serves from past years, the RAM referendum takes place, separate vote, a few weeks before we typically go to town meeting. It's locked in before, but it's not dramatically before. So it's always been this slightly tricky thing where we don't know until fairly close to when we are taking our budget to the town what the final numbers are.
So the way it's going to shake out this year is we're kind of recommending to the Board of Selectmen, I think May 4th for the town-wide budget meeting. The referendum is May 3rd. So if it passes, we will know by the meeting, but only right then.
We're gonna find out literally that day. So that
Only
I think
that,
is,
yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, that's even closer than in the past. But there's an example of how we have to build in essentially our educated guesstimate. There's no, I mean, there's no way we're going to overnight know, to fix our figures, right? I mean, we're gonna have to roll with what's presented and go to town meeting with what was brought to referendum, whether it passes or not, because we're not gonna have time to fix it, are we?
If it doesn't pass, I think we just have to go with the same numbers, right? If it
Yeah.
passes,
I'm
then
not
we gotta-
talking about the referendum part. I was talking about the RAM Board of Ed hasn't even approved the budget. So what
Oh,
we get
right.
from Scott
Sorry, I
is
jumped
all
ahead. Diane.
preliminary numbers. So
Yeah.
if it changes as of April 4th, we should make the amendments and then see what happens because.
Oh,
until-
agreed. I was jumping ahead. Sorry. I was talking about process.
So are you all taking it, like, I thought it could affect our numbers, but I think essentially it's the same thing. So even if they return some money to the town or they deduct it from their budget presentation, I guess it really is just money both sides, so.
I mean, I'm hoping
Correct.
they reduce the budget, but I'm not quite sure that will happen at the board.
Yeah, I was
Board.
shocked last year, even, how, like I spoke up there too, just a little bit, one person, but it overwhelmingly passes.
Right.
So you have to spend your time in the right, yeah, you're right. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Eric, just what were the dates you mentioned there? Was that the 23rd, 24th?
As far as I understand, the RAM referendum is tentatively scheduled for May 3rd.
Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Wrong month.
Lastly, of course, just saying that last year I was a private citizen, so I could speak my mind. I know that I'm on the Board of Finance this year, so for anybody out there that's listening to this.
You're still a private citizen. You can still.
I know, I mean, when
You just represent the town. That's the difference where it's the kind of new role you end up stepping into. Louise, you had your hand up?
Yeah, on the Andover budget page, I see that the budget, see the questions can be directed over to budget@andoverct.org. Who's monitoring that? And has there been any questions recently?
As far as I know, not. Amanda will be monitoring that.
Yeah, I mean, she said we could get the password if we chose. I mean, personally, I don't think that I'm going to be monitoring that, so I'll rely on her to kind of collect that data.
Okay, and will we be reporting that each meeting? So we can kind of keep up to date as to what questions have been out there?
Sure.
I think that's part of the intent is to capture that, and she can either distribute it or, I would just like to kind of see just
Okay. See what happens.
add the old messages onto the new and keep track of them that way. It makes sense.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions or topics for discussion? A lot of material in the last couple of days. I know I haven't had a chance to look at it, and I know it's gonna take some work, but.
Right, and part of the problem is that, when you put something on the list for us, it takes quite a while to generate all that data. So, I mean, I can't get it back to you, probably as fast as you want.
Yeah, it's fair. It's, basically you have 5 business days or 4 if you take out the Friday, but I know you guys generally work. It is a lot. But I have to say, I think we're getting closer. So the information is good. It is a little complicated to digest it. I haven't really had a chance to look at it.
I feel like now that we've had several of these meetings and we have the things, again, Valerie sent the information today. So, yesterday I would have had a little more time, but today I didn't. So like you said, if we take the next week and we get to look through everything we've had so far, plus all the questions we've already brought forward, we should be moving, and I guess we have Public Works next week, so.
And we did get a document that told us what we did spent on road work for last year. I think Jay's just working on the current year. So we'll have that information for our meeting next week.
Correct.
Excellent.
I should be able to get you the proposed road work next year, or the proposed for the upcoming year. Just the one thing I want to mention that where things get a little screwy is, each year's road work crosses 2 budget years. So it's kind of funky. We think of a season as basically, starting in about April and ending about October. So we always set aside a fair amount of money. So we certainly wouldn't spend every bit in next year's road year budget by October. We leave a fairly considerable amount because usually we can get better, contractor availability and in some cases costs by doing work before July 1st, when a lot of towns don't really have money yet.
So would it benefit us when we get those projects? And I'm not talking for upcoming because I know it's going to cross years, but for the past year, to understand what months or what seasons we did them in, so we can, all I'm trying to look at is what we spend on roads every year and tie it back to the money we're trying to put aside and what we have in town and the balance we carry forward. I'm just trying to wrap all that together.
Right. So you can ballpark and say most years, we're carrying over, we're starting the spring, with between $250,000 and $350,000, that we will expend before July 1. And part of it is like, for instance, the shimming process, the contractor's in for, 30 or 35 days. That usually comes, it takes time to mark the roads. Then you got to sweep the roads, then you got to crack seal the roads. Then you bring the shim contractor in, and then you come in and you chip seal or do whatever you're going to do after. So that whole process takes basically most of the summer. I don't know if that answered your question. Probably not.
Just trying to make sense in my little mind that all this work we have to do and how much money we set aside, trying to put a correlation to the numbers. Do you know what I mean?
Eric, I know you said I do get the whole calendar year thing of that the work takes place in certain months. Can we get something maybe on an 18, not trying to make more work for people. We can ask Jay, but can we see what road work's been done in the last 18 months? And we won't estimate that number, just to see this is how much we get in one full season. I don't know. Is that something we could do?
I think it's a good document to have because, when I looked at what came over today real quick, and I just saw a $500,000 number, that's a significant accomplishment for us. And that's something we should be talking about. We need to, for this budget, say, what did we accomplish last year and this is what we did with your money, and this is what we want to do going forward. So people understand that, you know.
Can I ask, when did we get that? That was something today that we received?
Yeah,
I tried to keep up, but you know.
It's in
work-
Eric's email. It's in a document, and it was last fiscal year's stuff.
That was today?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm not
It
complaining.
surprised me because I didn't think it was that much. Do you know what I mean? So that's, you know.
I'll take a look at it tomorrow or later. but
And
yeah.
I'm in, you know, and I go to all the meetings and I hear everything, and it surprised me. So I can imagine the people who don't know anything, how it would impact them.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, you know, we're gonna have this year, we're gonna have what, $180,000 in town aid road, and we're gonna have $330,000, you know, that we're putting in for the road work fund. And we're gonna utilize about $128,000 from a steep grant. You know, and we're going to spend about 270, you know, well, the remaining 250,000 from the connectivity grant. So, I mean, you know, we're going to spend a buttload of money between road work and general construction projects. There's no question. You know.
And I don't think people, until you add it all up, I don't think people understand how significant it is.
Right. However, you know, we currently have about a $5 million backlog in road work. You know,
But nobody's gonna think of it as that. Everybody knows there's a backlog, but people need to know, this is what we did for you last year, and this is what we need to get this year done. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Short chunks.
Right. Yep.
Because $5 million seems too unreachable. Whereas now if we're showing the progress we do you know what I mean? It looks like
Right.
we're working our butts off. Do you know what I mean? To try and get
Right.
it done.
So here's kind of the thing to keep in the back of your head. Given, well, I probably should update it now. Given prices about 2 years ago, to maintain the quality of road, the average quality of road that we have currently costs about $350,000 a year. So our roads age about $350,000 a year. You know, that is the, you know, the depreciation on our roads. So anytime we can spend more than $350,000, you know, we can make a net increase in the quality of the roads. Now the problem is we're starting from a hole. Our average road quality, you know, 2-3 years ago when I started this off, our average road, what's called PCI or Pavement Condition Index, was 61, almost 62. So that means our average road had about 75% of its effective life already used up, which is bad, right? Because you want to get to the point where your average road is at 50% of its useful life. And that means you're putting in, you know, you're at midpoint. Better than that, your road quality is better. Worse than that, you know your expenses are going to go up. You know, so that's kind of the nutshell. I mean, basically what we're doing is starting not last year, but the year before, you know, we did all the simple things we could to the good roads because it's much cheaper to preserve good roads than it is to fix bad roads. In other words, a few dollars early in the life of a road saves you a lot of dollars later in the life of the road. So the first thing we did is we addressed all our best roads, did something to them, put them aside, you know, and then, you know, we took all the remaining roads and we're just going around the town counterclockwise, doing roughly a quarter of the town at a time, maybe a fifth of the town at a time, and just doing the minimum we can to increase the drivability of the road. The problem comes in is once we've gone through the town once, we still have an underlying problem, is that the basic structure under the road, for most of our roads, kind of sucks, because they were old colonial cart paths that just got macadam over them and then ultimately paved. So at some point, for the next number of years, we can get the drivability back to the road and make people happier. But at some top point, we're going to have to bite the bullet and start investing in systematically grinding up our roads and redoing the substructure of the road. And that's where the 5 million comes in, But I would also say that the town's single most expensive asset is its road network. That road network is way more costly to maintain and way more valuable than everything else the town owns put together, including the buildings, the schools, vehicles, you name it. That is the biggest single most expensive thing. And if we had to start over and build our road network right now, it would be about $20 million to build out our road network. So that's roughly the new cost, the replacement cost for all our roads.
I just want to interject a simple question going on. Thank you for all of that. And I know we'll get into it more next week and all. The reason, are you telling me, and I know we'll talk about it.
You're on mute.
You just cut out, sorry.
You're still muted.
I hit it by mistake. I got to keep my hands. With the new positions, are you saying the people that we want to bring on board in those positions, they do a lot of the prep work? I think I was hearing you, the skimming, the this and that. Do they do, are there, and this can be really brief because I know this meeting has gone long, so I'll ask more last week, but are they coming in to do a lot of the prep work, that, or do they actually do a lot of the road work? So these individuals are, when we say road work, they're doing it.
So no, we do very little road work in-house. We do almost all of our own drainage work. We clean all our own waterways, we do our own leaf pickup, we sweep. There's an enormous amount of just annual maintenance on our roads and our structures. We've got 500 catch basins in town. Every single one of them gets sucked out every year. And all our waterways get maintained. We go around and we periodically push the edges of the road back. It takes one guy basically full-time all summer just to mow the roadsides. Plus a bunch of other work doing guardrails and stuff like that. So the major reason that the Board of Selectmen wants to bring on an additional person is because we have an enormous backlog of drainage work that needs to be done. And as we start talking about reconstructing a road, the one thing you absolutely don't do is you don't reconstruct a road until you've got the underlying drainage straightened out. Because there's nothing stupider than having a beautifully paved road and then going down and having to cut it up to replace a drainage pipe. So that's it. And we've done that.
I know we'll go into it a lot next week, but that I remember one of the meetings that I was listening to, I thought that the extra person was definitely coming on board for a lot of the road work and I'll read up and thanks. I know there's a lot of other things they do as well. Yeah.
Okay, other questions or comments? Okay, well, hearing none, I guess we can move on to our next agenda item, which is correspondence. We haven't had any public input that I'm aware of. The board members have all received the input from Eric and Sherry on the various things that were requested, a lot of which we've discussed briefly tonight, but there's a lot in there to digest. Anybody have any other correspondence to report?
No, but I had a question, if you don't mind, Mark.
Sure.
You know, we
Go ahead,
all
Rob.
got that letter. We were all copied on the letter from Amanda. Oh, is that something that the Board of Selectmen simply needs to deal with, and we deal with it if and when they deal with it?
Correct.
Okay.
Rob, I had some background. What were you saying? What was the question again?
Sorry, I think Eric Kirby. I mentioned the letter that got sent around from Amanda about her compensation, hours, etc. And what I said, and I think Eric agreed with, is that it seems to me that that is a Board of Selectmen issue that we can take up if and when they make a decision on how to respond.
Yeah.
But I just didn't want to ignore it. Amanda has been kind of a key person for us on all our meetings and everything, and it was out there, and I just thought I would bring it up. I saw it. I think you all saw it. And I guess we just wait for the Board of Selectmen to do what they need to do.
Rob, just to tell you, they went into executive session at the last Board of Selectmen meeting. I mean, I'm not going to talk particulars because it's a personnel matter and it, you know, probably should be confidential, but if they did that meeting, they said they were going into executive session. So
Okay,
I'm sure
good.
they had, so maybe we'll hear something in the future.
Okay, good.
Okay, other comments, questions, correspondence related? All right, hearing none, we'll open it up once again for public speak. Looks like all we have online is Shannon right now, sorry.
Thank you very much, Mark. I have no comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think that ends our public speak. Our last agenda item is adjournment. Anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make it.
Joanne, I said, okay. I heard Louise. I saw Joanne raise her hand, so I heard Louise. We'll record that. And Joanne seconds. Okay. We have a motion and second to adjourn. Any comment?
I just have
Discussion?
a question. Have we heard from Kurt? Is he going to be able to join us for future meetings? Have we heard anything?
We were talking about earlier before the meeting started. Eric said he thought he heard he was coming back in town, but you haven't heard any details.
I thought he was actually gonna be back in town by now. I did reach out to him, but I did not get a response.
Okay. All
To
right.
push it.
Okay. All right. So if no further discussion on the motion, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night and a good week. Thanks
Thank you.
again for your help.
Thank you, folks.